W-I-E. I am. Witch, please pull me now.
What lurks behind this unassuming storefronts in Cleveland, Ohio? It's the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft and Magic. Learn the history of Wicca and the tale of those who brought it to the United States. See the tools of magic, once used by practitioners of the arcane arts. It's the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft and Magic.
Welcome back to the Buckland Museum Frankenstein radio controls, broadcasting out of a forgotten chamber in the wilds of Ohio. So today we're going to chat with writer and practitioner of artistic magic, Johnny Decker Miller. You've seen his work here in the museum, all of our merchandise and books and zines like Fiddler's Green. He was recently published by Three Hands Press, and a book called Dark Magic. It's about Lovecraftian horrors. And well, there's actually a fun surprise at the end. But first, some business. Memberships to the Buckland Museum are now available. You can become a bona fide card-carrying member of the Buck. Go to our website, bucklandmuseum.org, and look for the thing that says shop, and then purchase your membership. This helps keep us afloat. Gives you a nice discount in the museum as well as online. Plus, you get free admission, so you can come hang out with me anytime you want. Tomorrow, December 8th, we are hosting a bit of a roundtable discussion with a friend of the museum, Stephen Romano, in the show he curated, Apparitions. We're going to have 4 of the artists in the show join us. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be live on this bat channel, but different bat time, around 7 p.m. Eastern. So the Apparitions Art Show is free with admission to the Buckland Museum. And once again, I implore you, order your tickets online via our website at bucklandmuseum.org. People have a habit of just showing up. Hey, what do you mean there's a pandemic? Oh, geez, yeah, I can't come in. Which is always really heartbreaking and a bummer for me because I love to share. But anyway, welcome to the virtual Buckland Museum. Johnny Decker Miller. How you doing?
Great to see you, man. Great to see you, as always.
Great to see you. So how are things going over there in your pandemic and your lockdown? You're over in Chicago. How are things there? All right?
They're good. We just moved to outside of the city, just west, so things are a little less intense there. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's just how everybody else is dealing with it. It's been hard. We have 2 kids, so it makes it even harder. But we're getting through, and it's given me some time to, to work on my art and my writing, which has been amazing. So in that regard, it's great. We got a new house, which is pretty amazing as well too. So finally out of a small apartment, which is great. So yeah. Things are good despite the unfolding apocalypse.
So I want to say, speaking of pandemic and whatnot, and Johnny's art here, he designed these wonderful bandanas. Because you got to cover your face these days, right? At all times, you have to look like some kind of post-apocalyptic marauder constantly going around. So here is a couple of examples of Johnny's work. I really loved it when he sent me this design with these COVIDs as the paisleys for this bandana. Super cute. And then, of course, this one here, based off of drawings that Johnny had done of some of our favorite artifacts inside the museum. So we always love you lending your talents to us here, Johnny. And here we did a recent T-shirt fundraiser for the Museum of Witchcraft and Magic in Boscastle, England. And this is what Johnny had done for us. So thank you very much, Johnny. Always appreciate you.
Oh, it was great to work on that stuff. I was doing work for the Buckland, so thank you for asking me.
No, it's an honor that you always seem to always say, you know what, that sounds pretty cool. So you're an esoteric artist. What exactly does that mean?
So I think that esoteric artist is somebody that, as opposed to maybe just, what you might consider to be just a regular gallery artist or painter. I think an esoteric artist is somebody who deals in some of the archetypal mystery that exists in the universe and traffics in that kind of territory. It doesn't necessarily seem to be as concerned with maybe some of the more mundane things in the world, like, I don't know, just politics or anything like that. It seems to kind of transcend that. There's a bit of a mystical air to anyone I think that would probably consider themselves to be an esoteric artist. And I don't know if I'd necessarily characterize myself as a mystic, but I think that there's something to be said for, again, trafficking in mystery and the unknown and consciousness,
Yeah, I do know. So I have to ask you,
I figured you did.
do you have a memory of the first time that you ever gazed upon something that you would consider esoteric art?
Oh, there's a lot. I think that, probably one of my earliest memories is probably seeing Dali's work. We actually had a print of Dali that my dad had purchased whenever I was probably in middle school, and it's still, I actually have it still, and it's one of those pieces that is still it's still so resonant with me, even though I still don't really understand what's happening here. There seems to be something that's deeper and more profound than what your initial viewing kind of lets on to. But the first time that I was extremely aware of something that I would probably consider esoteric art or occult art was the first time that I saw Austin Osman Spare's work, and his work really acted as an entryway, a gateway into much of what I do now. So without his work, I don't think that I would be on the path that I'm on now. Spiritual path, artistic path, my interest in philosophy and world religion, comparative religion, folklore, it wouldn't exist if I would not have encountered his work. The same goes for Lovecraft, which is kind of where the nexus of this book took off from.
So, we should probably talk about the book. Hi, Tamara. Greetings to you. So, Dark Magic, H.P. Lovecraft, Starry Wisdom, and the Contagion of Fear. So, where did this come from? So, I guess I need to point out at the very end, it kind of wraps up with a certain idea about something that we all think about every day right now in 2020. So, I have to wonder if... did this start during the pandemic, or did you start this before and you found a beautiful way to put a bow on top of it?
Well, so interestingly, I had actually started to write something about Lovecraft's influence on, a multitude of things: occultism, magic, even just general nerd culture. I started to kind of think and research into how he's really permeated a lot of mass culture that we see now, which is fascinating for such an obscure figure. He's obviously much more prominent now because of some of the shows and stuff and movies that have come out that are based on his work. But I would say probably that's just kind of something that's happened probably in the past decade or so. I think he's still, even in the 80s, whenever Stuart Gordon's movies and stuff were coming out, I think he was still fairly obscure author. But I had a particular phrase in mind that just sort of popped into my head and got me writing. It was referring to Lovecraft as a Gothic Plotinus. So sort of a seeing the world from this sort of Neoplatonist worldview, where everything is basically, you know, a convergence of madness and fear. And so I had kind of preemptively started to write a little bit about this, but I didn't really see where I might take it. And then Three Hands Press approached me to actually, they wanted to see if I had anything written that might fit into this Law of Contagion series that they were working on getting started towards the beginning of the pandemic. And I said, well, I don't know if I necessarily have anything that would fit the bill for the kind of work that you guys put out, but let me take a look. And it just struck me that the Lovecraft essay might be perfect for it. So that's kind of where it started off from. And then I just got writing, and it just took off from there. So I did a lot of research, and you know, again, it's a brief book, but I feel like there's a lot of information to take in, because there's so much, again, that I think Lovecraft has given to the world. So
there we have it. So I think I kind of skipped ahead. Do you want to kind of like talk about what the main concept of the book is itself? It deals with H.P. Lovecraft, kind of goes into more.
Yeah. So the monograph series from Three Hands Press is called Law of Contagion, and anyone familiar with folk magic and magic in general will understand that what that term refers to. It's basically states that something, and when two objects have kind of come together, there's a magical kind of connection that takes place, and almost like a viral contagion would. And there, so if you imagine like a particular object, like a ritual object that maybe somebody like Raymond Buckland, you know, the museum touched, or Gerald Gardner, Aleister Crowley, something like that, has a certain psychic occult resonance to it, and it's a link with the person who originally touched it. It's carried on through that object. And I kind of saw Lovecraft's writing and his sort of philosophy in the same sort of vein, where, you know, he was somebody who was massively influential for some of the biggest names in horror writing and science fiction that we know now. So your Ray Bradbury, Stephen King, people like that, and then even into, again, like I mentioned, mass culture, film, superhero movies, even. I mean, I think that there's a lot to be kind of unearthed, and a lot of connections to be drawn directly from Lovecraft. Lovecraft is this sort of you know, source point. So that's really what the crux of the book is basically his influence on the world as we know it right now, the cosmos. So there's everything from geopolitics is discussed in the book, and tabletop gaming, role-playing games. I really found a lot to kind of bite into, and especially obviously magic. You know, we all know that people like Kenneth Grant were heavily influenced by H.P. Lovecraft, and that Lovecraft was aware of people like Aleister Crowley at the time that Crowley was writing. So there's just the connections are literally endless. So I wanted to kind of investigate that and find some of the key points where I think Lovecraft has really interjected himself into our consciousness.
So you had mentioned something about the fact that Austin Osman Spare and H.P. Lovecraft had intersected at some point.
Yeah.
Can you kind of talk about that, because that blows my mind.
This was fascinating to me. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know this until I had picked up a copy of one of the Hippocampus Press books, which is basically collected letters between Clark Ashton Smith, another favorite of mine, another weird fiction author who you know, kind of circuitously was influenced by Lovecraft and Lovecraft by him. But there's a few instances of correspondence between the two where they mention Austin Osman Spare, which I was just I couldn't believe it. And so yeah, and there's even, I mean, some of Spare's work references Lovecraft. There's a piece that basically is kind of taken from a scene in The Call of Cthulhu, who I believe Kenneth Grant probably turned Spare onto Lovecraft's work. But yeah, I thought that was pretty amazing. And again, it kind of was this moment of synchronicity where it was just perfectly lined up for me to kind of take it and insert it into the book to bring to the minds of everyone that could read it. Because I think that a lot of people probably don't see some of these connections. I think that Lovecraft is kind of seen as this, godfather of science fiction, this kind of he's just sort of this dark luminary that kind of hangs over horror and sci-fi. But when you really delve into it, the guy was really invested in many aspects of, art, science, philosophy. I mean, he was extremely knowledgeable on many subjects. And again, I think, you can look at astrology journals that he published work in. You can look at, again, like the tabletop gaming culture that he was involved with small press publications across the U.S. He really kind of became sort of a precursor to what we would understand as like modern day, zine culture and like tape trading culture, punk culture. And I think Spare was in a similar kind of vein. Spare kind of had this sort of chaotic punk ethos, that carried on, with his legacy too.
Yeah,
There's a question here actually popped up. Do you want me to answer any questions that pop up, or?
Yeah, and anybody out there that has any questions for Johnny, please chime in because we love hearing from you. Herman and High Priestess says, Johnny, what is your favorite H.P. Lovecraft book?
So my favorite story, I would probably say, is probably Dunwich Horror, because it was the first story that I actually read by him. And as an interesting kind of backstory to that piece, one of the main reasons that I became aware of Lovecraft was because a good friend of mine who sort of I call him my grand initiator into the mysteries, because he was an interesting character who I used to work with, who got me into a lot of. I mean, we would talk music and art and books and stuff, and he was amazed that I had not read any Lovecraft with a lot of the kind of interest that I had, especially music wise. But he was like, you've got to read Lovecraft. You got to investigate this guy. So he gave me a 70s paperback of Dunwich Horror, which had this kind of grotesque, basically one of the mutant Whately at the end of the book. It was sort of a depiction of him, and I read it, and it was like it was just absolutely mind blowing. So I quickly read everything in that book, and then tried to amass everything that I could from Lovecraft. Yeah, I mean that book, and I actually love the adaptation from the 70s, the Corman one. I think is amazing too. So yeah, that was my entry point. So that's still my favorite story. Although Color Out of Space is probably a close second.
So is this the cover right here?
Yep, that's it.
Wow.
And I don't recall what the artist's name is, but I know that there was a whole series like that. And then there were also some ones that he lent me that had sort of these grotesque faces on them as well that I really liked. Yeah, great cover art.
Yeah, truly great. Wow, how cool. So let's see here. So what's the first drawing you ever did of anything dealing with the arcane, Johnny?
So let's see, I'm trying to think. I mean, I always kind of had a fascination, you know, when I was a kid with Halloween and witches and things like that. So a lot of my work currently, art-wise, my written work as well, kind of deals with witchcraft and folk traditions that kind of embrace the darker aspects of you know, consciousness. So I mean, I remember just loving to dress up for Halloween and to draw pictures of monsters and things like that. But so, I mean, I think I've always a lot of my work has been out there since I was a kid. But I mean, I think the first time that I really, you know, we were talking about Jodorowsky before we got on here, and actually, I think when I encountered his films, I started to I remember really taking them in and wanting to kind of emulate what I saw in those films in my artwork. You know, whether it was, you know, incorporating the symbolism that he used or just colors, some of the symmetry that he used in his frames, and like listening to psychedelic music and stuff kind of got me interested in kind of exploring that stuff more, of course, and experimental music. And so when I started to kind of make more of a conscious decision to, you know, kind of create work that dealt more with my subconscious mind, things started happening that have changed the kind of course of what I've done. So, but yeah.
So yeah, I was thinking about it the other day. The first time I ever I heard of Jodorowsky, right? And it took years and years for me to ever like track down one of his films. And you know, it was like
Which one
well
was
worth
it?
What's it?
Was it Holy Mountain?
Yeah. It was Holy Mountain. And this kid I knew, this kid Blair, he had tracked down a bootleg version from Japan. And if anybody out there has ever watched the Jodorowsky bootlegs from Japan, they know exactly what I'm talking about, where there's certain parts that are just missing. But yeah, true like mysteries, right? Because like
Yeah.
Jodorowsky was one of those people that you would just like hear about and like find little like clippings about, and they would describe these films, and then eventually I found one, and yeah, there we go.
Yeah, there is a great video store in Chicago called Odd Obsession, until they closed, actually, unfortunately, because of everything going on with the pandemic. But they were one of the kind of, they were like this institution in Chicago, and they had every, you know, all cult movies you could think of, foreign films, everything, experimental movies, documentaries, and they had the Japanese bootlegs. They also had some other VHS bootlegs of his work, and that's where I was able to encounter his stuff. But because I'd only read about it, you know, or people would reference it, you know, just in interviews. You know, I remember reading like Arthur magazine or something back like 10, 15 years ago, and somebody mentioned Jodorowsky. There might even been a whole piece about him. And I was like, who is this character? I need to look into this guy. And yeah, sure enough, again, it was one of those pivotal experiences that was like, wow, I need to really invest some time into studying this stuff and just understanding where this guy's coming from. And I still don't understand. I think that's part of the pleasure of being immersed in magic and being immersed in esotericism, is this there is a little bit of unknowing to everything that you become involved with, and that's part of the pursuit, is this constant pursuit of knowledge. And I think that Jodorowsky is one of those people who has built his career on essentially kind of fostering that kind of outlook on art. So yeah, I try to do the same thing in my work. I think I try to leave certain things open-ended with my visual work. My written work's a bit different in that I do tend to kind of write in a more scholarly fashion. But as far as my visual art goes, I think a lot of it is just directly drawn from the subconscious and drawn from dream experience or these flashes of inspiration that I get, whether when I'm walking through the woods or doing anything like that. It's a very intuitive process. I don't try to overthink too much when I'm painting and drawing.
So, do you mind if we take a little walk through your website a little bit and take a look at some of the art
Sure.
that you create? So.
Absolutely.
There we go. All right.
Yes.
So, I'm really not sure how I discovered your work. It just seems like one day we were friends. Yeah. But this right here.
I'm having a little trouble with.
This is actually going on right now, right? It's one of the drawings of yours that I love very much. Are you there?
Can you hear me okay? Because I'm having audio.
Now I can hear you. Yeah. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about this and what drew you to this.
Much better. All right. What were you saying?
I was just curious. What drew you to draw this right here?
Yes, the Mari Lloyd.
This is super nice. All right.
Still having trouble hearing you.
Oh, sorry. Well, let's see here. So I guess that's not going to work so well. But anyway, I was admiring the art that you did for Charlie there.
Oh yeah, Charlie's stuff's great. I'm always happy to do stuff for music too. I mean, I love creating album covers and things like that. That's something that I actually started kind of getting into early on, was just creating like tape covers for friends or record covers, posters, things like that. And then I had my own band that I did a lot of work and T-shirts and stuff for, and so yeah, that was kind of an entryway into doing more of the illustrative work that I do now. That appears in books and is published and stuff like that. So again, going back to that whole DIY punk thing, I mean, I think that really kind of kicked things off when I just realized that anyone can kind of get involved with creating books and music and artwork like this, and having shows and having, gallery shows or anything like that. I thought it's amazing. But yeah, so I like that you featured the Mari Lloyd. That's in the spirit of the holiday season here.
Yeah, it is. And I have to say, this is kind of amazing. This is like a Perry, what is it? The Perry Fellowship, Perry Fellow School.
Yeah, so this is a little diptych that I did based on the Dreams in the Witch House, Lovecraft story. Great. And so I like that one because it does deal with witch lore, which is something that I'm fascinated by, and obviously relates to everything that's going on at where you're at. So I was able to kind of do my personal rendition of Nyarlathotep, the Black Man of the Sabbath, the Witch's Sabbath, that Lovecraft kind of the way he envisioned him. Yes, the Horn God.
Yeah, this is really beautiful. What happened to this piece? Is this sitting around in your apartment or in your house? That's gorgeous. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing screens. It seems to not be doing us any good. So working on anything else very cool, Johnny?
So
you think coming up?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of stuff. I'm always working on something, but there's a lot of stuff that I is pending for publication. There's a few different things that I've written some essays that are going to appear in a few anthologies that are forthcoming, I think, hopefully this year. And then a bunch of work that I can't really say much about yet, but it's been a massive undertaking. So when it does come out, I'm really, really excited about it. It's one of those things that's a little frustrating, just with the way that, social media tends to work, where you've got to constantly show what you're doing, show your work every day, post a new thing. I just can't do it. First of all, because I'm not, at liberty to, show what I'm actually working on in most cases, because it is commissioned work that I can't talk about. But also because I think that it kind of, it's not a great system for allowing that intuitive kind of process that I was talking about earlier to kind of take place. It can be a little bit soul crushing. So a lot of the stuff that I post on Instagram lately has just been stuff that I've just been doing at home, but and a lot of my artwork is yet to be revealed. But needless to say, there's a lot that's going on behind the scenes. I've been working like crazy over the past few years on multiple projects that I'm very, very excited about, that I'll be able to talk about hopefully in the next this coming year or so. But
That sounds amazing.
yeah, I mean, on the one thing I can talk about is that there is a book. I don't know when the publication date will be, but there's an anthology about entheogens that's due out from Three Hands Press called Daemon and Pharmacon that I wrote an essay for, and that one is going to be really special. So I'm very excited about that.
That's cool. So, little personal question, Johnny. Have you ever seen a UFO?
I saw one fairly recently, actually. I think I told you about it because I was in Cleveland when it happened. And it was a very, very brief thing that was otherwise just completely mundane. But I don't know what to call it other than a UFO. It was a very brief experience where I saw something in the sky in the middle of the day that I couldn't explain. It just came into vision and then just disappeared. So I don't know. Maybe it wasn't a UFO. Maybe it was. I don't know. But I have had experiences in the past. I've had some strange experiences, ghost activity and stuff like that as well too. That I went into a little bit about on another podcast a couple of years back. But so yeah, there's there's definitely been some strange synchronistic UFO weirdness that's occurred. What I read into it or make of it, I don't know. But yeah, have you?
I have, but I don't really talk about it. I don't know. It's just kind of like a weird thing where I'm like, yeah, nobody wants to hear this stuff. Like for me, they want to hear from you, but not for me because I sound like a crank. So.
That's generally what happens. It kind of it can either really throw people or it can really draw people in, but you never really know. So it's best to be one. I think it's one of those things where it's best just to again let the mystery kind of settle. And yeah, I've seen some weird stuff, but who knows?
I remember vowing that moment that I would become the UFO after that. And like no longer would it be me seeing others, but it would be me like having others see me as a UFO. And
I like that. That's a very poetic way to look at it.
Well, yeah. So we have a comment here. Let's see. Wait. I do want
any more questions?
All right, so this is Tony, my partner in the museum. She wants to hear about the time I saw the UFO. I'll call you and tell you this sometime, Tony. It's kind of long, convoluted, really boring. Yeah. So, Tony, have you ever seen a UFO? I gotta know. You gotta tell me about that sometime. So, you are interested in this stuff, but are you an armchair guy, or do you actually? You ever
yeah, I mean,
take the step off the cliff there? Yeah,
I would say that. Yeah, I would say that I practice a variety of different, folk magical things but I don't consider myself to be, I don't follow any particular tradition. I like to draw a lot of inspiration from historical texts and things like that I've found in my readings, and I do a lot of work outside, and I do a lot of work with nature. So even things that are simple, making charms and stuff like that for my home and for my family. So in that sense, yeah, I am a practitioner. But yeah, I mean, I don't follow any particular tradition. I know that obviously, at the Buckland Museum, heavily kind of is with Wicca, but yeah, I haven't really devoted myself to any particular path as far as that goes. I consider myself just to be an animist, but yeah, that's how I feel.
I like to say that, we start with Wiccans and then we kind of like branch out all the way. You have any kinds of magical thoughts and you walk in here, you're super welcome to come hang out with us. That thing is like non-fundamentalist in our thinking here. It's weird because like, with Wicca,
the way
years ago, the last thing in the world I would have ever thought of myself as is a Wiccan. And just recently I came to the conclusion that, I think maybe it's just hanging around with this stuff all the time or what, but I think I'm really a Wiccan at my core now. And I think that's kind of like fascinating because...
Well, it's a beautiful tradition. I mean, I really think that, actually, like I had, the Buckland's book, Big Blue that you were talking about, the complete book of Witchcraft, that was one that I actually came to later. It's kind of like how I feel with music. Like if I get into anything, like I tend to go for like, if I'm into metal, I'm going to go for the most extreme thing that I can. I don't know why. I'm just always kind of drawn to that kind of thing. Or if I remember being into punk when I was in high school, and I got to find the most obscure bands or whatever. And then I kind of work my way back to some of these more foundational things. But so in a similar way, that's kind of how I found my way to learning more about Wicca and finding that book and reading through it. And like, I think the practical knowledge that kind of comes through that Ray kind of presented is pretty amazing. And he talks about like basic metalsmithing and stuff in there, and it's kind of fascinating. You can build your own athame and stuff like that. Forge your own metal on your kitchen stove. I think that, again, I love the DIY approach to things, and I think that is one thing that's really amazing to see. That's kind of come from a lot of the resurgence of interest in Wicca and witchcraft, traditional witchcraft as well. Just everybody, people discovering that they have this power latent in them. And that it taps by anyone if they choose to do so. And I think it's one of those things where you don't have to posture yourself as any particular adherent to any sort of particular path or anything. You can fully embrace everything that's happening and try to do your best to understand what's out there. And I think that people will fall into place and find things that resonate with them that they'll eventually kind of follow more closely, which is amazing as well. But I think that I like the kind of open marketplace aspect that's available for people to kind of uncover and just basically just uncover the magic that's inside of themselves. So I think that's been wonderful to see. And I think Raymond's book is a great example of something like that, where it's very approachable and practical. Whereas some of the more there's a lot of work out there that does take a bit of time to basically to absorb and years of reading multiple times of different texts. I mean, when you look at any sort of the classical religious texts of the world, I mean, they're not something that you're just going to read one time. You're going to have to. It's going to take time for them to embed themselves into your brain and into your mind for you to really absorb. So, I think that it's really interesting to see a lot of people being interested in these types of things these days, though.
Yeah,
in spite of the kind of mass insanity that we kind of see surrounding everybody. It's good to see that people are kind of connecting with spirituality in their own personal magic.
Yeah, it's I don't know, a lot of people say that Big Blue doesn't have any like mysteries to it, and I would argue that it does. So I have a personal question for you. When's the first time you met the great Michael Bertiot? Do you remember the day you sat at the foot of the Master? Good friend of Johnny and I is a gentleman named Michael Bertiot, lives in Chicago, where Johnny lives, and quite the mystic there. Tell me about your first meeting with Master Michael Aquarius.
Yeah, Michael Bertiot. So while I'm not in super close contact with Michael, I've met him a number of times and I'm in communication with him every once in a while. But the first time that I met him, I've been aware of his work, for a while because of reading Kenneth Grant's work and seeing some of his imagery and writing and stuff in various books and anthologies. But the first time I ever met him is he actually did a film series at the Occult Bookstore in Chicago, and it was open to anyone to attend. And so I would go to the screenings of these, this occult film series that he would put on, and it was a pretty wonderful experience because it was always a very intimate group, and he would kind of hold court and introduce the movie and give usually a very long introduction to whatever film he was going to show. Then we'd watch the movie and then everybody would go. It was always such a great experience because it was like you were getting a little mini lecture right before the screening of the movie. And I mean, the guy is just, his mind is just on fire, literally. The connections that he makes with things that most people would probably overlook, just the minutia of a particular scene in a movie, like the Black Cat or something like that from the 2030s. But just things like that. It's just amazing to kind of watch his mind work. And then subsequently, whenever his newest book came out, which collects a lot of his previously unseen artwork and writings and correspondences with his students and stuff like that. When that came out from Folger, there was a book release, and I was like, I've got to be here. This is going to be fantastic. And I knew a lot of people sort of in the community that I'm kind of involved with were going to that as well. And it turned out to be an extremely fortuitous event because I met a lot of people that now I work with frequently, and it was amazing. So it was a great connecting experience as well to meet him, especially that time. And he's annotated my Voodoo Gnostic workbook a few different times. I've asked him for some questions, and it's always great to kind of have somebody that can shed a little light on the mystery.
Yeah,
so,
he's like my all-time favorite occultist, and I think about him daily. And I think I need to write him. I haven't written him for a while. So we have a question here from Cara, who she works here on Saturdays. She's a Baroness Submeti, I guess. Let's see, Johnny. Given that you practice, Would you say that your art and literary tastes lead to your interest in magic, or the other way around? Practice leading to the creative aspects?
That's a really good question, and I think that I think it's one of those things where they sort of exist in a mutual way. I mean, I think as soon as I became aware of somebody like Austin Osman Spare, I mean, it was just like immediately I started practicing sigil magic, and again, that was just that was a major gateway to me, learning more about people who had become kind of cornerstones of my own practice and my own interests in magic, such as Andrew Chumbley and some more modern contemporary practitioners like that. Yeah, and then just becoming interested in just kind of finding, again, working my way back from some of these people who are maybe a little bit more fringe, even in occult circles, and working my way back, and kind of just discovering, reading about Hermeticism, reading about Kabbalah, and discovering folk magic, and really reaching back and kind of discovering this sort of, these sort of untapped sources that I had not been aware of previously. And, growing up Roman Catholic, I was already sort of immersed in a world that was a little bit magical to begin with. And I think growing up that way really had a big influence on what the kind of things that I'd become interested in later, especially in regards to folk magical practices and folklore itself. Because a lot of, as we know, like Catholicism, as it kind of has spread throughout the globe, has kind of taken on folk tradition and incorporates a lot of that stuff into itself. Whether it's sanctioned by the church or not, it's still a part of the living kind of practice of Catholics. So, while I wouldn't consider myself a practicing Catholic now, I definitely have a lot of reverence for it. And again, the artwork that comes from the Catholic Church and Eastern Orthodox Church, I have always loved icon paintings, and a lot of the work that I do is heavily influenced by that type of imagery, as well as medieval woodcuts that are religious in nature, or illuminated manuscripts. That kind of work has all been a major influence on the kind of work that I currently produce. So, yeah, I think it's sort of a two-way street, one thing influencing the other.
Yeah, it all kind of builds up on itself, right? So, Johnny, I'm going to share something with you. You would that illustration that you had done, where we had the Lovecraftian horned god, made me think of some stuff by Perry Bible Fellowship. And I want to share with you what I consider the peak piece of artwork that I've ever seen in my life. When I see this artwork, I see the mysteries of the world, and I just kind of laugh, right? You ever see this before? All right.
Up, right?
And there's truth to that, right? So
it's probably the most succinct. Yeah, it's probably the most succinct manifestation of one's involvement in spiritual matters as you could probably get.
I mean, the spider thing with the snakes looks like something that Hagen von Tullian would have made, which is really wonderful.
His work's great too. Oh, I have to mention too, in my book, In Dark Magic, I was really, really happy to have Liv Rainey Smith contribute her artwork to the interior of the book. I did the cover, but I was really adamant about trying to see if we could get Liv Rainey Smith to contribute some of her work. She's an amazing xylographer, woodcut artist, and I mean, a lot of her work is very, very influenced by Lovecraft and weird fiction in general. So I was really honored to have her stuff featured. It's beautiful. And there's an interesting tidbit about her work too, for fans of Richard Stanley. Apparently, one of her pieces was used used in the film Color Space recently, on some of the clothing that Lavinia Gardner wears. Yeah, I thought that was pretty fascinating. So I need to go back and look at the movie again to take a look, but I thought that was really cool because I'm a huge Richard Stanley fan, and I thought The Color Out of Space was great. Although I'm still waiting for a Lovecraft movie that is a period piece that's true to the kind of atmosphere of the original work. You know, I think there really hasn't, other than the silent one, the Call of Cthulhu, which was pretty great. I'd really like to see some more film adaptations that are period pieces. What do you think? I mean, what did you think about Stanley?
I think that guy's like one of the greatest geniuses of 20th century, 21st century. Color Out of Space was fantastic. What's the one movie? Hardware, which is
Hardware. Dust Devil's probably my favorite though. Dust Devil's amazing.
Never seen it, so.
Oh, you got to watch it. You got to see his documentaries too. He's done some great documentaries. He did one on Haitian voodoo, which I think you'd really like. I think it's called something about the moon. I can't remember exactly what the title of it is, but he also did some. There's one on the Holy Grail, and it's pretty fascinating stuff. They're very, they're very art house, experimental documentaries. I mean, they're pretty out there. I think you'd really enjoy them. But yeah, he's a brilliant mind for sure.
Yeah, he went to France, right? Disappeared for a while he was looking for the Holy Grail. I watched the documentary recently where they're making the island of Dr. Moreau, and he goes insane, and then he becomes part of the cast. He's supposed to be a director, he gets fired, he goes, things get weird, and then the next thing you know, he's one of the animal creature people in the background. That
was a great documentary. That was pretty amazing. I would love to have seen what his version of that film would be like.
I think it would have been better. What about, so you saw Color Out of Space, but did you see Mandy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was great, too.
It's kind of Nicolas Cage is purple, pink period. It's the coloring in that film is pretty incredible.
Oh, so yeah, it was like a Yes album cover or something. The whole thing was this great sort of almost looked like a prog rock music video from the 70s or something. It was pretty awesome. There's been a few films like that. I didn't see that guy's original film though, but apparently it was supposed to be pretty Lovecraftian as well. Beyond the Black Rainbow or something, I think.
Yeah.
What the was, yeah.
It's kind of it just kept making me think of THX, kind of THX on acid. The THX 1138, the George Lucas film. So, So, what are you doing tomorrow? Anything cool?
Oh God. Well, doing some work. Hopefully, doing some artwork. I've got a very new piece that I'm working on that I'm very excited about. Again, that I can't talk about, but it's going to be very cool, and I'm very excited about working on it. And then hopefully do some writing. But then the bulk of the day is going to be spent corralling my kids and trying to make sure that they don't kill each other in our house since we're, stuck inside all the time. But yeah.
Probably a good idea. So in Chicago, there's a pizza place.
Yes.
I drove by it and I was like, that looks like Johnny's artwork. Is it?
Oh yeah, probably Dante's, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dante's. Yeah, I have done some like public artwork for restaurants and stuff in the past as well, and murals and things like that. I haven't done a lot of that kind of work in a while, though. I've been pretty occupied with my own work. But there are some friends of mine that opened up a pizza shop. I used to work with them years and years ago, and then they started their own New York style pizza, by the slice place. And they asked me to do the artwork for them because it's sort of a Dante's Inferno themed restaurant.
Yeah.
Now there's a chain. There's like 3 or 4 of them in the city. And so I did a mural for them, a couple different murals, and then some of the menu stuff. But yeah, that was fun to do some work for them.
How cool. Well, Johnny, thank you so much for hanging out here at the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft and Magic. I'm going to ask you to hold on for just a second so I can say goodbye to you properly off air. Thanks to everybody that was sitting there hanging out with us here for the last hour. Hope to see you here at the museum sometime soon. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern, going to be hanging out with Stephen Romano and this motley crew of incredible artists that are all taking part in the Apparition show now on display here. It's really such an incredibly beautiful show, and I really, really, really need people to see it because just mind-boggling some of the work that's on display right now. And this is going to be your last chance to see it because guess what? The show's going to be over in a couple weeks. So anyway, I hope everybody's doing well. We're leading into the holidays, right? Or I guess we're in the middle of them. Not really my favorite time of year. But I just really hope all of you guys continue to, stay witchy. So stay witchy, my friends. Take care.